Hey, hello, and good morning, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Culture Fuzz podcast. My name is Rissa, aka Rissa SoFar. I'm trying something a little bit different today. I want to start incorporating some visuals to the audio podcast. Maybe not all episodes, but as many as I can. So this episode is the first video accompaniment that you can also find on YouTube, as well as the audio on all streaming platforms for a podcast. So yeah, this is going to be new for me. So we're going to learn together and do this together. But today's episode was really special. I was already started changing. I completely forgot I had to do an intro to this. So for the ones listening, I had changed my shirt. I'm wearing a different shirt in the rest of the interview or not really an interview, but conversation with Fresco. So I have a returning co-host, young Fresco, who was in From Mormon to Mushrooms, episode number 12. Really, really love having conversations with this guy. This was 2 hours of just jam-packed, philosophical, amazing conversation. And I invite you guys to listen with an open heart and open mind. It's definitely not the normal run-of-the-mill conversation, but as you know, Culture Fuzz is about bridging the gap to people, places, products, and ideas that is going to make a quality difference in your life. And entertaining different thoughts without particularly adopting the idea and subscribing to it as your own philosophy is something that I invite everyone to do. It's all about having expansive thought. It's all about learning to pivot. And it's all about alternate perspective that can ultimately help you connect and have meaningful conversation with other people. Without further ado, here's the conversation with Fresco.
You sound fantastic. Love that I'm seeing you too. I feel like, I've seen your pictures, but now I'm seeing you in real life right now.
It's real. It's not a catfish.
I know.
Someone told me, they're like, it's refreshing to see that you look like your photos. I was like, thanks. It's like the ultimate compliment.
Right? It is, right? Some people you look and you're just like, this could go either way.
Yeah, exactly. It's like it's a gamble. But Fresco.
Yo,
welcome back to the show, my friends. What is up, man?
Back. Yeah, thank you for having me back. Ooh.
Absolutely. So for my listeners, people who are listening in audibly, I changed something up today. Ooh. So we are actually posting this episode on YouTube as well. So you get to see our fun, bright, beautiful, melanated, light, bright faces.
Ooh, I like that light, bright face.
So make sure you head on over to the Culture Fuzz YouTube channel so you guys can watch the episode as well. But yeah, my friend, how have you been? What's up since the last time I talked to you? What was that? Episode number 12, I think.
Yeah, and shout out number 12. That's awesome. No, I've been, the journey continues. The journey continues. I've been talking a lot about manifestation and kind of appreciating that when I set an intention to do something, it happens. And oftentimes, I don't necessarily, and not to, all right, for lazy people, I just want to preface this. You do have to put in a little bit of work. But what I'm going to say is when you put intention into something, it kind of blossoms, it comes toward you, but you have to be ready to accept it. The action is accepting it. So I've been noticing that, if I stay stagnant, if I don't request anything, if I don't set an intention, nothing ever happens. But when I do, it just comes willy-nilly. So set those intentions. It's been happening a lot for me. It's been awesome. It's been really cool.
That's amazing. Can I ask, what are some intentions you have been setting?
Yeah. So all right, check this out. Lately, I've been feeling like it's been the end of something, like a very big end, like a season finale, if you will. Mm-hmm. It's just it. Yeah. Have you felt that? Did you?
Oh my God. I have. It's not like a joke, but I always call those the universe or God's giving me a final, or it's kind of it's the exit exam of whatever transition you're going through. Usually, it's pretty. There's a lot of friction. There's a lot of it's not a smooth exit ever. It's more just making sure you grasp the lesson. But What are you've been talking about moving? Is that one of the intentions that you've been putting out there?
So I've been thinking about that for a while, and it's crazy because this time last year, I had a place I was going to move into. It was a loft that I would be sharing, but nobody else was really going to be there. And the purpose of the loft was to also double as a studio. So it was like the perfect setup. But it wound up falling through literally a week before everything shut down with COVID.
Sheesh.
So it was, like at first I felt frustrated for that first week, right? I was like, oh my gosh, like, this was the thing I had hoped would happen and it was right there and then it didn't, but then COVID happened. So those like kind of full circle moments where it's like you don't know why the blessing, the thing that you wish to receive doesn't work out, but there's always a reason for it. So that was about pretty much exactly 1 year ago. Fast forward 12 months. And I've got about 6 weeks or so to figure out a new living arrangement. And I thought this is the perfect time to look anywhere. Like, why stay Jersey? Why stay East Coast? Why stay, where it's cold in the winter? I could go anywhere. So why not just explore that,
Right.
So I have a few options popping up. I just got out off a phone call just before this podcast. Friend of mine's like, he's a really great singer. His name's Scott Paul. And he's like, bro, I want to do a shoot. I want to hear some ideas. I want to hear, I want you to kind of put something together for the song. And I was like, dude, I'm going to be 100% honest with you. I do not want to do a shoot in Jersey. And he tells me, he's like, well, I'm going to Houston, Texas soon. So do you want to go? And I was like, hell yeah, I do.
Hell yeah.
So that was another one of those moments where I'm looking at Texas, I get a phone call, and all of a sudden it's like, I guess we're going to Texas in 2 weeks. Things like that.
Just kind of going with the flow. So it's kind of like, so have you been putting intentions out there in terms of like more shoots? You want to like be in different areas, explore different locations, like with your photography and stuff. Well, boom, there it is.
Absolutely.
And just kind of like sitting back. And it's very interesting how you touched on being prepared to receive these things, because I myself the past couple of weeks have been kind of in a funk. And I talked about it in my bonus episode that was released. This is being released Monday. That was released on last Thursday. Whenever I'm in a funk, quote unquote, I always equate that to I'm just out of alignment. Something's not in alignment. Something is off. Yes. Okay, like cool. It's just like something's off, honey. I need to see what's going on. So I just took a step back from social media. Thankfully already had like content on deck, but I wasn't on social media. I wasn't networking. I was just filling my cup, filling my glass. So I've been diving into divine feminine energy lately. So like reading books behind that, because it's like I feel like I can be very masculine. Like I was raised as a tomboy, I'm half Latina, so I'm very fiery. I'm very just like come at you. So it's very difficult for me to tap into the more feminine side, the more yin side of myself, where I'm softer and more patient and sit back and allow things to come to me, allow things to become attracted to me, as opposed to always charging towards something, which is what I feel that I always do. So that's like the whole yin and yang concept, feminine versus masculine, finding the balance between the two when it's necessary to tap into one. So when you're saying like you need to be prepared for those moments, I feel it's the same thing. Like it's like you put those intentions out there, you sat back, and you recognize those moments and opportunities for what they were. And then on top of that, how you voiced it to your friend, you're like, I don't want to shoot in Jersey. Like, I don't, no,
yeah, like, no,
I don't want
to.
Yeah. So it's like, yeah.
And I will, don't get me twisted. Like if I have a personal project and it really doesn't matter where I'm shooting it, then I'll shoot it in Jersey. If I have clients, I'll shoot it in Jersey, shoot in New York. It doesn't matter so much, but talking about listening and being able to kind of receive this information, the entire time he's talking, I'm sitting there and I'm like, this doesn't feel right. This doesn't feel right. And I almost said no. And then the minute he said Houston, Texas, I was like, that's what I was waiting for. That was the thing. That's why I said yes until he used that particular place. So sometimes, it's not so much about inaction. or action. Sometimes, yeah, like you said, it's about this patience. The answer doesn't always come immediately, even when you're presented with a potential opportunity, a new connection. The answer isn't always there. You may not know where it's headed or why it's there, but just give it a little time. Don't say no immediately. Don't say yes immediately. Just listen. See what comes up.
Man, like just sit with it, chew on it. And that's another thing that I've been really focused on, like really staying within with a lot of things, like like I'm so used to just like calling my girlfriends on like every little thing, whether it's like a win, a fail, like like, oh my god, I took the best shit of my life, like it was like just like every little thing. And now I'm fighting this impulse, or like my spirit, my internal self is telling me to just chill, just like chew on these emotions for a minute, like don't go outside of yourself, just kind of like chill, just be. And I'm like, this is new. Okay, for sure. So it's been really interesting. My phone has been very dry. So it's like, so I'm just like, I don't know, like I don't know how to feel, like I don't know. It's just like a lot of different new emotions, feelings coming up that I'm just trying to figure out, and I'm enjoying the ride. It's just kind of like, okay, like I feel like I'm coming on the wake of something. I don't know what it is, but we're about to figure it out, and I know I'll know what it looks like when it comes. So in the meantime, I'm going to continue taking inspired action.
May I ask you, this might even turn into a suggestion. When I find myself in these moments where I don't, like I feel like I'm being stagnant, or I feel like I'm not really tuned in. I feel like, like you said, like the phone's dry, there's not a whole lot going on. I don't always remember this, but when I do, it's like, it's super important. I try and ask myself, what if I had the time, if I've been waiting for the time, what have I been setting aside to accomplish?
Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
All right, so check this out. What was it? So I just mentioned this whole thing about like feeling like things are coming to an end, right? I would say around November, December, I had like this 1-2 week period where I had no gigs, no shoots, no edits. I was just like, I finished everything from the previous weeks, and I was waiting for gigs to come up. So I was kind of just chilling. I have been putting aside organizing the basement, getting rid of stuff that I don't really need, especially with Christmas. It's just like, I don't need all these jingle bells, who he has, and doodads. I don't need it. So I started throwing some stuff out. And I may have mentioned this in the last episode, but I felt this emptiness because I tend to kind of compact things within myself. So during that period, I realized it was time to clean. It was time to expel, to release. If I hadn't sat with my thoughts and reflected on what I could use the time for, I don't think I would have done that. So I've made space for new opportunities, new growth to come in, because I allowed myself the space to get rid of the stuff that was just kind of lingering.
That makes a lot of sense. I love how you put that. I'm going to go ahead and say yes. Interestingly, I think unconsciously, I was doing that. Like, it was kind of like, okay, well, I'm stepping away from my content and creating, like, I need to take a break from that. And like automatically, without thinking, I continued with my regular life, like cleaning out my bookshelf, like buying new plants, going on walks, hiking, reading, writing just because I love to write, like making sure that I'm doing things just because they spark joy and not because there's an end goal or like there's like a result that I'm trying to get. So it's like I had to remember to do that because like I was getting stuck in the very toxic mental loophole of checking my stats, like for Culture Fuzz and stuff like that. So like every single, I don't like doing that, like because then it turns into this whole, I'm doing it for the wrong reasons. I'm doing it for the likes. And that's what it began doing. And then I just felt like this emptiness and no longer felt connected. And I was like, damn, this hasn't happened for like a while. And I know what I need to do. I need to take a step back. I need to remind myself why I'm doing this. And it was really refreshing and relieving to find that if I were to take away the potential clout or the potential monetization or just any potential that can come from this platform, I would still do this because I love to have conversations. I love to genuinely connect with people. I love to hear their stories, whether it's on the podcast, whether it's on my grandma's front porch, whether it's at a barbecue, whether we're just chilling in the car smoking a blunt. Like, I love having these conversations, and that's what's important to me. So it was like, I remember why I'm doing this. And then I got like this new wave of like fresh, like a second wind.
Dude, I just to kind of piggyback and relate to that, I went snowboarding for the first time in 5 years.
Oh wow.
Like a few days ago. And I'm going down the mountain. There's a sort of serenity with just sliding down a hill. You know, there's just enough control, but almost like a departure from control at the same time. So I had forgot that feeling, you know, that weightlessness, that sort of just, you know. So yeah, I totally relate with that. Sometimes you have to kind of step away to remind yourself why it was you did something in the first place.
Oh man. Yeah, it's really, really important. Knowing your why. I stress this to anyone that starts a new business. Like, I remember my sister called me. She's like, oh, I want to start like a drop shipping thing. And I was like, okay, like, so real quick, before we go into the details and the logistics of how you're going to do this, I need to know, why are you doing this? And she's like, well, what do you mean? I was like, obviously the end goal is to make money, but like, what are you selling? Why are you selling it? And I'm like, I can give you the long spiel of why drop shipping is good and why it's not so good. Or I can just be like, yeah, go ahead and get started. Like, I can be the yes man. Like, what do you want? But I find that a lot of people who do not know what their why is are usually the first ones to give up, because they can't tap into that motivation, because it's the why that is going to keep you going, that is going to push you through the hard days, the days that you don't want to get out of bed. Like, it's the why. It's your whole reason why you're doing everything. So, if you don't know what your why is, y'all, I suggest reading, what is his name? Simon Sinek. I don't know if you've heard of Simon Sinek. The book is called Start With Why. He has a viral TED Talk called Start With Why.
Do you put your book recommendations like in the bio or description of your uploads?
Not like I should, but let me write that down, and I will.
What is it called?
It's called Start With Why by Simon Sinek. Sinek. He also has a viral, I think I mentioned this in one of my older podcast episodes, but he also has a viral TED Talk where he breaks it down as well. It's one of the most viewed TED Talks on there, along with Brené Brown, Empathy versus something, I don't know, but both of those phenomenal TED Talks. So yeah, knowing your why is just super freaking important, and I encourage everyone to take the time to carve that out. You know what I'm saying?
I may say, but don't get stuck on it either, because some people are like, well, why should I do it? And then, you know, so I feel like sometimes there's these moments where you don't always know the why, but there is a motivation.
Right. It's like there's some sort of why. No. The why evolves, I feel. Like, it grows and it develops and becomes larger. But what was the whole reason why you woke up one day, or why I woke up one day and was like, I'm going to do a podcast, I'm going to do a YouTube channel, I'm going to start a blog? That's a lot. I gotta make sure I know what my why is. I gotta make sure I know what I'm about, and that I stay consistent with that, like, to make sure that my content and my branding are cohesive and that they all align with my why. So it's really, really important for branding, for telling your story, for making connections with people. Because if all you're saying, it's like, I'm just doing it to sell money, I don't want to buy shit from you then.
No, right. No, I feel that. Yeah, I mean, it's especially as a photographer. Like, I say this all the time. Like, I don't know how some photographers have a career. Like, the dudes that are just kind of sitting there, and it's like, oh, come here, we want this photo, and it's like they're waiting to be activated. Like, I walk in and I'm already there. Like, I'm already like, yeah, like, who's here? What's the energy? Like, what do you guys like? What's the celebration? Like, I had a West Indian reception one time, and it was awesome. Actually, I have a South Korean first birthday baby's party coming up too, and it's exciting to me. It's like, holy shit, like I've never been around that. I've never seen that before. Like, you know, if it's not charging you, like, what are you doing, man? You know?
Yeah, like on a cellular level. I know exactly what you mean. Absolutely. So lots going on. Today is a very historic day for America. We're recording this on January 20th, the day of the inauguration of our 47?
Oh, 46.
46
Yeah.
presidents.
I know that only because I know people who call the last one 45, and they won't say his name, which is a little Voldemort-y, but yeah, whatever.
I mean,
He
I
who
can see
shall
why.
not be named.
He who shall not be fucking named. Energy is everything. But yeah, so we can call him number 45. That works for me. But no, today was very historical. The little brown girl inside of me was very, very ecstatic. My vice president is a woman of color, badass woman of color. So that's historical in that, right? The votes were super historical this voting round. But I also see that there's new concerns with this new transfer of responsibility. And I just want to know, like, what your thoughts. Do you follow politics? Do you care? Does it matter?
I do, to the extent that, I'll put it this way. The divisiveness of politics, I've seen the real dirty side of it. I've seen the very damaging side of it. So I follow it to the extent that I have an understanding of what's going on. But as far as my investment in it, I try and maintain a degree of neutrality.
Absolutely.
And I say that from the perspective of not just politics, but anything. You know, I see the good and the bad. I see the bad and the good. You know, I see, you know, the stories of the heroin addict that, you know, their story, their demise ultimately taught people around them how to be more grateful. In the same way that I've seen people rise up, make millions of dollars, and then just become absolutely depressed and unsatisfied. You know, so like I pair these kind of examples up because I think politics has that sort of, that as everything else does, it has that sort of ability to be both good and negative. And so I followed it. I know what's going on. I'm super into it. I'm happy Homeboy's out. I'm done with that. But I do also see kind of some of the concerns coming up as far as, you know, like Hunter Biden's emails, as far as, you know, some of the historical practices of both members. You know, in particular, like, the one thing that still sits a little funny with me, if you will, is that moment when Biden goes, you know, if you don't vote for me, you ain't black, kind of thing. You know, like, there's just...
I missed that. That's how attached and unattached I am to these situations. Like, I kind of like here, I'm like, wait, I didn't hear him say that. Like,
yeah, he said that. I'm trying to remember. I know he either said it on Charlemagne the God show or Charlemagne the God spoke on it, but I want to say it was on Charlemagne the God show that he said that.
It's a little gaslighty, I feel.
A little bit, yeah. It's just it's a little overly confident. It's a few things, but the long and the short of it is this: I don't believe in institutions ran by people. I think that, and by people I mean giving one particular person a high degree of power. And I understand that our Congress is meant to kind of circumnavigate that to a certain degree. But I refrain from accepting too much of it into my being. So happy that Biden's here. Happy that Kamala Harris has been, is a beacon for this moment for women. A beacon in this moment for women of color in particular, and not just black women, but also any woman of color, Asian women of color. It's the symbology of her being present that to me is important. As far as Joe Biden being there, it's kind of like a return to form for me more than anything. You know?
I really admire insight, and I find a very refreshing pattern in some of these conversations with people who I have the best conversations with are usually very unbiased, and they know how to navigate that line of neutrality when it comes to listening and observing both sides, because I think it's very, and like you introduced or you coined the phrase, if you believe in God, you need to
You got
study
to
the
research
devil.
the devil,
You
yeah.
have to research the devil. It's my like I think of it all the time because I'm like, I feel like that phrase just prefaces that practice so well, because it's like you can't just look at one side. Like if you want to have an overall knowledgeable observation of something, you need to look at both sides. So I'm kind of the same way. Like it's like I have my general internal biases, of course, we all do, but I'm
Of
aware
course,
of that.
of
And I
course.
try very, very hard to not apply my biases to the situation. Like I already have the bias of like my vice president is a black woman. Like, you know,
Yeah.
like I'm writing that bias all the way to the bank, because that, like you said, symbolically is a very, very important thing for all of us to see, like this is absolutely possible. This is a huge step forward in terms of America as a culture, but that is not to say that we're not done. Like
Right.
this is great. This is so much to be thankful for, so much to celebrate, but it's also a reminder of we are so far from done. You
Mm.
know, like it's we can't turn a blind eye to, you know, past policies and past practices, to you know, what these two members have done and stuff like that. But taking into account weighing in the good and the bad, being aware of that, and then just making very thoughtful, conscious decisions and observations about what's going on, and don't be an asshole to people
Yeah. I
about
mean,
politics.
and during the inauguration, Biden did say something, not as if nothing he says is relevant, but just this in particular really resonated with me. He said that he wanted to get back to a space of having conversations and not fighting each other over them. And I
Mm,
remember the minute he said that, I was like, this is the thing that's been missing. This ability to have genuine conversations. When I talk about this sort of dark side, this sort of, and, not dark in like the real way, but like dark in the sort of, symbolic way of evil, if you will.
yeah.
The problem with it is I've nearly lost family members, over political views. I've nearly lost friends over political views. In fact, some friends I have lost over political views, and from both sides, the Democratic side, the Republican side. And I found a very concrete trend in both of those scenarios, both sides of the parties. They were willing to fight for their position so blindly. It was good intention in the beginning, but so blindly that you couldn't see the cracks in between your statements. You couldn't see the cracks in between your belief systems, and you you ultimately became hypocritical for it. And I found myself biting my tongue. I found myself defending people because I felt that they needed to be defended, whether I agreed with them or not. Um, and it really tore parts of my life apart. With that being said, I mean, that was also part of the topic we were going to discuss as well, is like, these toxic relationships, when you need to just end friendships, when you need to just move on. So, I'll save the rest of that conversation for that if we touch on it. But there's a lot of damage that can be done if you're not careful with your words. And even if you are, you need to know who your crowd is, who your audience
Hmm.
is. If you
1000%.
recognize they can't handle it, don't even bother. You know,
Man, I was
don't
just
even
gonna
bother.
say, I was
Like,
just gonna say, like, listen, with my parents, politics are off limits.
mm,
Religion is off limits. I'm like, for the integrity of our relationship, for the health of our relationship, understanding the beliefs of some people in my family, I'm like, because my relationship to you as a family member is more important than the
mm-hmm,
logistics of our beliefs, let's go
mm-hmm.
ahead and not allow this conversation at gatherings or when we talk on the phone.
Oh,
Like
she's doing it.
it's
She's like, let's not.
like it's just like let's not like and the thing is it's like I'm capable of hearing people out. I have no problem with people voicing their opinion no matter how extreme it is.
Right.
I don't necessarily impose my viewpoints, especially when I'm talking to an extremist who is just like, okay, I'm not going to be able to get a word in edgewise. At that point I become an observer and I just listen, because usually people who talk like that tell them themselves. So it's like okay, go ahead and talk, like that's totally fine. But what I want to go back onto, because it's like politics and religion again is a very 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 like very sensitive topic for a lot of people, and like you said, people like yourself lose relationships over it. And why do you think that is? Like, why do you think people subscribe their identity so strongly to politics and religion?
You know, the first thing that comes to mind, you know, and I tend
Is
to
it ideology? Is it like idolism? Is it like
are
these big questions?
No, I think it's parts of all of it. You know, I think ultimately you want to believe in something. You know what I mean? It's like that old adage, right? If you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And I think that there's something honorable about defending and standing up for something. But there comes a point where you can also fall victim to it developing into a pattern, into a behavioral pattern. You know, you get so used to defending something, you get so used to hearing that you're meant to defend that thing. For example, you know, the better example of with Democrats is Democrats are Democrats because they are fighting for the democratic core. You know, I can't say Democrat enough times, but they're fighting for this ability to a freedom of speech, no matter what it is. But then the irony of, you know, these far left conversations is that you now have places like Twitter, you now have places like Instagram, you know, banning President 45 President Trump, and so the irony in that and the hypocrisy in that is you're saying you want to be able to live free. You're saying that you want to speak your mind, but when somebody says something that goes against that, even if it's the same base, Republicans want to speak their mind. In fact, Republicans are speaking their mind. Democrats don't like that, vice versa. So I think that people believe that they're defending the just core. They're defending what's right. And to both sides, they wholeheartedly believe that. You know, another example is Christianity versus Judaism. You know, was Jesus the Savior or was he not? You know, it's the very same kind of core principle. I believe that he is, and I want to save you. So believe that Jesus is the Savior. Then you got the other side. I want to save you. I love you. But Jesus is not the Savior.
Ooh, I felt that coming. Sorry.
Bless you.
Tickling my
Bless
nose. And I was like, bullshit. I was like,
But you see that dichotomy, you know, it's this dichotomy. It's people believe so wholeheartedly that they have the right answer and they want to help. So I think it kind of comes from that, you know. That's my short answer after a long answer.
people have a lot of killing of the ego to do, it sounds like.
Yeah.
It sounds like, you know, like it's I was talking to Curtis King about that on the last episode of killing the ego and being aware of the ego, and 9 times out of 10, you know, when I talk to people with this type of mindset, I was like, you don't even know that you have an ego. Like you're not even aware that you're not aware. And it's like, I don't have time, you know, peace, love, and light, but it's
the Crusades was like a huge ego boost. Like, we're gonna make you Christian because we believe it's right. That's all ego.
It is just like, I feel like religion's gonna have to be dedicated to another episode altogether, because it's like, I've got some words as a woman who grew up in a private school. Do I have some words? I think we talked about it a little bit in the last episode. But I want to go back to.
Well, before we do you feel like I answered your question? Because that was a good question, and I just feel like it's so textured. Do you feel like I answered it?
Yeah, I was even going to ask another question to elaborate even further.
Okay.
I was like, oh, I'm not done, friends. I'm not done. But I want to go back to when you said that Biden was saying we need to have more genuine conversation and we need to have more conversations. What ingredients are required for a genuine conversation? What does that sound like? What does that look like? I've got my theory.
I know you do. I know you asked that question because it's been something on your mind. And it's been something on my mind too, actually. I think a good ingredient for it is the ability to check yourself. I think that's really what, at the end of the day, that's one of the key ingredients. You have to be able to listen to somebody else telling you their version of a story, and you have to be able to have the cognitive capacity to indulge in that information, play with that information, chew with the information, not necessarily adopt it until you feel like you've gotten to a point where you can either appropriately accept it or appropriately reject it. There is an element of ego that you definitely need to kind of like get over before you can have a genuine conversation. Like I can't wait for the moment where we disagree on something, like you and I. Because that's
is that gonna happen?
It could. I mean, but that's the truth, right? I mean, like, it in a way, it's almost more telling. It's more valuable when people don't agree, but they're able to have a conversation. Like, I love Jews for Jesus. I love this idea that like that you can believe that he existed, you can believe that he did good, but he wasn't your Messiah. Like, how evolved, you know what I mean? Like, how brilliant. Obviously, like, I still don't subscribe to either religion or faith, but like, how brilliant,
right?
You have the ability, the information is there for you. You were capable of doing that. That to me is evolution. I think that was amazing to hear about that group of people.
For the listeners who may not know what Jews for Jesus is, what is that? And why is it so evolved?
Well, no, so just in the core concept of it, it's Jews that agree that Jesus existed.
Okay.
They agree that he did good, but they don't necessarily accept him into their...
So it's one of those, like, I see you.
Right.
You ain't tribe like that, but I see you.
Right, yeah. It's like, and maybe this is bizarre to say, but I guess it's like white people looking at Martin Luther King. Like, you didn't really
bizarre.
You didn't do anything for me, but like I
see the work that you did. Yeah. And I think that's actually a pretty brilliant example, because we can adopt that philosophy in our life and be able to look at something, a person, a life experience, a culture, and even though it does not relate to you in any form, you can still take yourself outside of yourself to appreciate that situation.
That's another ingredient. Yeah, taking yourself outside of yourself. I just want.
Oh my god.
So yeah.
So like that's so I think what you were saying, the ingredients on a genuine conversation, hits it right on the head. It's the ability to first understanding. Like, I think empathy is like a huge, the number one component for any relationship, beginning, middle, or end, like whatever the case is. Empathy is like the driving core, because with empathy, you have to kill your ego in order to give empathy. Like, it cannot be about yourself. You can't, like, my favorite thing, and I really try to not do this because it irks the shit out of me when people do this to me, but projecting my experience onto someone else's experience in an attempt to relate to them. And it's like, I gotta fucking stop doing that. Like, it's like, oh yeah, I went to like Disney World the other day. I remember when I went to Disney World and blah, 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 blah. And it's like, you take away their moment of being vulnerable with you, because it's like you're making it about them. So it's like actively listening, asking questions, like genuine fucking questions about the other person that is going to continue the conversation, being vulnerable yourself, to show them that it's okay for them to be vulnerable. Because when you set the table with those ingredients, the type of conversation that flows is like genuine. it becomes genuine. There it is. Sprinkle a little, sprinkle a little bit of genuine and empathy on that. So that's great that Biden is saying like we need to have conversation, but I think it's important for people to understand what that means in order to have successful, constructive, progressive conversations.
Yeah. I think like one of my favorite things about Biden, and I honestly, it could be one of his pitfalls, it might not be. He talks very slowly. He talks in a way where it gives you time to think about things. It can be a little sleepy at times, to be honest, but he talks in a way where it's like, all right, if you said something, there's time to digest it. Like, when he said that, I had the time to kind of accept it, acknowledge it, play with it a little bit. I don't know how well that's going to work as a president, just as an aside, but I do know as a speaker, and for being the person that I am, it was just helpful, because time and time again you see politicians just blow through topics, and it's just like, blah, blah, blah. It's like a Gatling gun of information, and it's like, if you're not operating at a level where it's like, okay, I can take it, the buffer in your mind, like, has the space to hold it as it's processing, like, it's just going to be mush to you,
Yeah.
And I think a good example is Trump supporters and their relationship with him. I think that he speaks so quickly and says so much that you hear the gist of what he means, but you don't really give a shit what he actually said.
Like a sleazy salesman approach, I feel. Yeah. Like, it's just like, you're talking kind of fast there, my friend. Like,
you know what I'm saying? Like, it's all good.
It's a lot of words. It's a lot of fluff. Yeah. So,
so two sides of perhaps the same coin, if you will. But yeah, I really do think it comes to a point where you have to be able to just like let yourself this thing that you view as you. I think if you're going to be selfish about the truth of who we are. To be selfish, wanting if you want the best for you, it's kind of like this meta sort of concept, right? If you want the best for you, that could translate, ironically enough, into the best for everybody. If you want to breathe good air, if you want to eat good food, if you want to live a healthy lifestyle, if you want to be a capable person, there's a degree of selfishness in that, but it is ultimately beneficial to the grand whole. If we all gave as much of a shit about ourselves in that way, as opposed to, I just want to fill this emptiness, selfishness, there is space to be selfish. I think we need to be selfish to a certain degree.
Oh, 1,000%. Oh, yeah. I whole fucking heartedly agree with that. And like, it's going to be a foreign concept to most because we are not wired to be selfish. Like, we, like, especially like with my culture, like Latina culture, like, we have to put others before ourselves. Right. Like, that is just like how we're raised, like, and women as well, like that, like women, oh my God, the kids, the man, it all comes before us. So like, we're kind of like waking up to this time where we're now playing with the philosophy of like, selfish is good. Like, you need to be selfish. That means cutting people off. That means just being recluse, being within yourself. You're gonna hurt people's fucking feelings, but like you said, it's aiding to the much larger picture.
Yes.
So like, I have an example, and like, I don't know if he listens to this podcast. Please don't kill me. But
don't use real names.
Not at all. So I have a friend who, was kind of going back and forth about breaking up with his girl, and he gave his reasons were consistent with why he shouldn't be in that relationship. They were valid. They were well thought out. Like, it was just, at the end of the day, he couldn't see himself being a whole person for her that she deserved.
Wow.
And I kept telling him over and over, I was like, I don't think you know how brave you fucking are. And he's like, I don't know if it's brave. I was like, no. People, number one, you are like 4 years younger than me. There are men who are like years older than me who can't even fucking conceptualize what it is that you're dealing with right now. And like, at the end of the day, you are giving both of you guys a gift and a chance to become better people, because you recognize deep down, you've done the emotional work, the psychological work to recognize your truth and how it doesn't align with the situation. Even though you fucking love this woman, you don't want to hurt her. She is everything that a woman is supposed to be, but you recognize the truth in yourself that you cannot turn yourself into that person for her, because it is not who you are. And he's going through it. He broke up with her. He going through it, hunty. Like, heartbreak is no joke. But I applaud him. I commend him.
I do. Round of applause, everybody.
Like,
man, wow.
Listen,
Yeah.
like, snaps,
wow.
Because that shit is bravery. Like, you know how many people settle and are just like, oh, okay, like, might as well stay together. We've been together this long. Or like, I don't know if I'm going to find anyone else. How many people have settled? And I look at the relationship years down the line. It's like, it's not too late. Like, you can still, like, you know what I'm saying?
No.
So it's like, it's very, very important to be, and he's dealing with those things too. He's like, I feel selfish. You know, I feel like a bad guy. I feel like a villain. And I'm like, it's an interesting dynamic, because you chose yourself. You made the decision to choose yourself as a betterment of the entire situation. Like, it's, you chose yourself after examining the situation as a whole. Yeah. And it wasn't like, oh, I want to go fuck these other bitches and da 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 da. It's just like, damn, like, I don't see myself being that version of me that she sees. I can't align with that. That shit is so dope. Like,
that is not easy. It is not an easy decision to make, because, you know, there's a flip side to that too. Like, there's a lot of self-reflection involved in that, and there is, I would imagine he's dealing with this sort of anxiety of, is this really the right choice? Like, am I making the mistake, kind of thing. It sounds like he's done the inventory. It sounds like he's taken the time and been like, you know what, no, this is the right decision.
He has.
He has. And that again, that speaks to the sort of the good and the bad and the good. Like, staying in that relationship may, at a physical or at least an outward level, seem like the right thing to do, because you don't want to break a heart. But what are you keeping her from? What are you keeping yourself from?
All of that. You guys can't see me listening, but I'm over here like, speak on it, Fresco. That's what I'm saying. Like, and at the same time, it's like, you don't know what blessings you're blocking for her. You don't know what growth she's supposed to learn. You know what I'm saying? Like, and of course, like, they're dealing with the emotions of the after effects. Like, heartbreak is no fucking joke. That shit. It is like a physical, like, ailment, man. But, you know, my advice to him was, I was like, allow the fog to settle. Like, everything that you're feeling is completely normal. But allow the fog to settle and give y'all the space for this to actually take place. Because you've made this decision for a reason. It was valid. It was sound. It was not impulsive. And I'm like, you need to rewire yourself, reprogram yourself, rediscover yourself, reroute yourself, and just allow yourself to discover or explore that person that you felt you weren't able to explore while in that relationship. Like, give yourself a chance, dog.
Yeah. Like, you know, it's wild because that feeling of suffocation, you know, like when you're in that kind of a relationship and you feel like you're drowning, like every part of you is being rejected. You're, in fact, sometimes it's even you, like yourself, you are rejecting those parts of you. You know something's wrong. You might not notice it in the immediate moment, but I've known, like, from personal experience, every relationship I've had, and this is a weird trend, but just about every relationship I've been in has been 2 years. It has been less, but it hasn't been more. And I reflect on that and I think about it. 2 years is a pretty good amount of time to figure out.
I was gonna say, like, that's a good. It's a good amount of time to really get an understanding of someone, I feel.
Yeah, at least the gist, you know, like, do I want to keep doing this?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And, you know, even from that perspective, they might be a great person. You might even connect on a certain level, but a part of you might say, we're not completely connecting. I feel a blockage somewhere. And those are the hardest relationships to break up from. The ones where it's like, again, is this as good as I'm going to get? Am I missing something?
Right.
Am I being too selfish? But I really think when it comes to relationships, especially if you're going to spend the rest of your life with this person, you've got to wake up and want to see them, even when you don't. You got to wake up and care about this person, care about what they're doing, have an investment in their lives just as much as you have an investment in yours. Maybe not just as much. Like, you should probably worry about your own shit a little bit more, but you should give a shit. Long story short, you should give a shit. If you don't,
you should get just a little bit, it shouldn't. Just a little, but like it's I've been in a relationship going on 9 years, 8 years. I don't know. It's a long fucking time.
More than 2.
It's definitely more than 2, and it's always relieving to hear people's feedback on their views of relationships, and I'm just like, yeah, I can check those boxes. We've definitely I don't feel that I'm compromising myself. I don't feel like I'm settling. I don't feel like I have to give up parts of myself in order to maintain this relationship, and that is what's so fucking important to me. Having that support, having that safe space of where my partner's like if I wanted to start an OnlyFans tomorrow, he'd be like, whatever, just pay the bills, man.
That's
I don't give a fuck.
there. That's hubby right there.
That's what I'm saying. I'm just yo, and that to me is what's super important. And I don't feel, if you ever feel that you have to compromise yourself for any relationship, it's probably not going to end up in the most healthy of elements, I feel. But so just kudos to the ones making the best decisions, even though they're not necessarily the easiest decisions. You are giving yourself an opportunity for growth, for expansion, for progression. Shit hurts, bro, but growth is not, it's called a growing pain for a reason.
Yes, well said. And before we, if it sounds like we're going to move on, but before we do, just think of the impact of his decision that it's having on you to spark this conversation, to share it on your podcast, to then allow other people to digest it. His ex-girlfriend's, ex-partner's pain is teaching us a lesson. His ex's experience, is teaching us a lesson. Hopefully it's teaching her as well. But just, last time we were on the podcast together, I brought up these ripples, and this is another example of that. You know what I mean? She has no idea that she's going through a tough time, but that tough time is having a direct impact on people. You don't always see what you're going through and how it's affecting other people, but it is. And I think that that's something that we just disregard way too often. It's such a foreign concept. What do you mean? I'm over here crying. I feel sad. I want him back. But it's part of that greater whole. It's part of that grand, sort of plan, if you will. We're all learning together.
Well, damn, Fresco. Yeah, I did not even think about it like that. And it's really funny because it's that's why I have this platform, because it's we can really learn from other people's situations. We especially the people that are close to you, those people are reflections of you. You have those people around for a reason. And think about that, y'all. Think about the people that you have in your circle. It's a reflection of who you are. So so 100%. Check your circle. Is it quality? Is it quantity? Is it low vibe? Is it high vibe? But it's that was very profound. I really appreciate you pointing that out, because I didn't know that needed to be appreciated. It's other people's situations can really teach us a lot, and I'm glad I'm able to elaborate that, and I hope this helps someone. I hope y'all know some of the best lessons and the greatest self-growth comes on the other side of a broken heart.
Girl, I just got my next tattoo.
But it's real talk. It's my advice. My heart's been broken a couple of times. My advice is to really get rooted back into yourself, rediscover your hobbies, rediscover the things that spark you joy. Without that person, you are leaving a chapter of yourself where you're so used to being with someone. You've combined yourself, your life with someone. And the whole thing is to not forget that you were a whole person before that person. You are a whole person while you were with that person, and you are still going to be a whole person after that person. So it's just remember who you are, because that's always you are the only one who's always going to have your back. So
always.
That's what I say on a broken heart. But so these genuine conversations, another thing that I wanted to bring it up, someone on Facebook was like, do you think that people are becoming more sensitive, or do you think that people are starting to hold those people accountable? I don't know if I asked that right. So
I might want to rephrase.
So do you think this generation is more sensitive, or are we holding more people accountable for their actions?
Before I feel like I can answer that, how do you think that the word sensitive was defined in that question?
Everybody gets booty hurt when you call something to someone's attention, or if you question someone's belief, or if you just question someone in general that threatens their identity in any way.
Yeah, okay. All right, yeah. So
it's just like, damn, bitch, I just asked you a question. So like that is what I think like sensitive is like.
Yeah, I think one for sure that people who are that kind of sensitive are starting to get outed for it. And it's, it may just be who you are. You maybe haven't reflected on that. So like, I don't necessarily want to knock people for that, because there are like, just overly sensitive people. Some of them,
Yeah, you unpacked that and was like, actually. I'm like, all right, we have to agree to disagree on that one. I was like, I think we finally found something we disagree.
No, I don't know. I guess I'll put it this way. I'm one of those like to each their own kind of thing. If you're like sensitive, overly sensitive, I personally think, you probably have some work to do. You probably have like some processing to explore. But I also don't want to hold it against you. In the same token, going back to the question though, I do think that we feel more emboldened, and I think you could even see a connection. You can draw a connection to the empowerment that women are experiencing, that the LGBT community is experiencing, victims of sexual abuse are experiencing. I wouldn't say those people are butthurt. I wouldn't say that those people are sensitive. I would say that those people have been living with something for their entire lives, and they haven't been able to express it or appropriately unpack it with one another outwardly.
I hear you. And I think you do make a good point, but I think there's a difference there. So people who have experienced trauma like that, I think there's a difference between sensitivity and PTSD. Like, it's like we need to be sensitive to people of trauma. Like, if I'm like, okay, so I guess this calls for kind of defining it, I guess, like the difference between the sensitivity of people. So it's like, yes, you have people who have dealt with these traumatic life experiences, that we need to be sensitive to those experiences and understand what those triggers are. We all have trauma, completely understandable. I guess as I'm unpacking this, I can understand what you're saying. Like, that's why having that empathy, and I think having that sensitivity as the person holding the other person accountable. I see. I'm having a thought. Like, as I'm having a revelation as I'm unpacking this. So I think Yeah, I'm thinking about it like wholly differently. I think it's important for the person deciding to hold that other person accountable to be to be sensitive. They have to be the sensitive one and understand, why is that person being quote unquote butthurt? Why is that person being sensitive? Like, what did they go through? Like, what is their life story? Is this a trauma? Is this a trigger? Because I definitely have triggers that I didn't know that I was sensitive to until I'm in the moment and I'm like, don't know why I'm crying. So I'm
Do you
just kind
care
of like,
to share?
yeah. But trying to think. So I have.
Side note, if you go like this, people will do exactly what you want them to do. Do you want to share?
Wow, it worked. So I was like, okay, I guess I can, because it's my job to be vulnerable on the show. So like, so let me share. I'm gonna use that. I'm gonna see if that works. So a time where I didn't realize that I had a trigger, or that the trigger was still there. I was on a Zoom call. So my childhood, I didn't really have the best relationship with my grandparents. There were a lot of things that my grandmother said to me growing up that was really traumatic and like affected me a lot as I was getting older. And I did a lot of self-healing. I did a lot of work around that, you know, and I've internally forgiven her, just to be healthy and move on with my life. And I remember I was sitting at the beach. We were on a Zoom call with my family, and my grandmother was on, and she had said something. She was saying like, oh, like, hola everybody, like whatever. And then she was like, ¿Dónde está la Rissa? She was my Spanish is fucking horrible. She was saying, she's like, ¿Dónde está Larissa? Where is Larissa? Or is she like, she's being like a flojera, like she's being, or she just being lazy. I know she was kidding, but I had to turn off my microphone. I had to turn off my camera, and I just started fucking bawling, crying. And my sister was like, where'd you go? Come back. And I told her, I was like, I just got unexpectedly triggered, and I'm like bawling my eyes out. She's like, oh, okay, like take all the time you need, like whatever. That's an example of, I know that I'm above this. I know that I'm vibrating higher than this, but the moment that the source of my trigger said something, it still held this power over me, and I did not know that was still there. So like, that's an example of like identifying triggers that you may not even know existed. So like, if you're in a conversation or something happens and you find yourself having this like inappropriate, random, weird ass reaction to something, it's worth unpacking and trying to understand what the source is. Like, another example, my boss and I had like a conversation where it was like miscommunication. And she had said something, like, I don't know if it was the tone or like what it was, started crying. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, I don't know why I'm crying. Like, this conversation on any regular day, I'd be like, whatever. Like, I'm very, very laid back. Like, it takes a lot to get me riled up. And I was fucking crying. And I'm like, I gotta go take a walk, because like, I don't get this. Like, this does not add up, like why I'm crying. Took a walk for like 10 minutes, and come to find out that I was actually mourning a situation that was happening in the family. And I'm like, I don't even know how that, like, what's funny is that like, I was expecting those emotions for that family situation to eventually come to the surface, and like, I was waiting for those tears to come. I didn't know when they were gonna come. And it came in the most unexpected, random fucking way.
As they fucking do. As they fucking do. You know?
So random. But yeah, so like, so when that happens though, like, I think a way to take control of that, understand that, develop yourself, is to do the work around that. Unpack that, understand, why am I crying? It can't be that situation. Well, what could it be? What happened this week? What's going on in my life? Like, what am I sad about? Like, asking these questions, that's going to direct you to possibly, hopefully, the source of what that trigger is.
Well, yeah, that's, so we talked a little bit about, women and their traumas, but then you also got to talk about toxic masculinity, because that's kind of another thing that what you said touches on, is this sort of inherent need that we see in men, not just men, but inherent need in men where they feel that they can't express their emotions, they can't unpack their emotions. So if you were given the opportunity to do that, you would come out the other side stronger. It wouldn't be a false sense of security. It wouldn't be, well, my daddy said I got it. Like
Right.
it's you believe that by withholding the pain, you somehow are stronger for it. But if you understand the pain, you know how to navigate everything so much more flexibly, so much more openly. I'm going to draw this parallel back to when I was talking about cleaning my home. If you're carrying the pain that you have with you everywhere and you never give it a chance to kind of see the day of light, you've basically reserved that space. Or rather, yeah, you've reserved that space. It's no longer available for anything else to come in. So imagine trauma after trauma, frustration after frustration, little things that just add up over time, and can't even discern. It's such a pile of trash that you're looking from so far away that it looks like a mountain that you could never climb over. Come to find out, you get closer to it, and it's really just little bits of trash. That's all it really is when it comes down to it. So you were talking before about having more of this masculine energy, which, as an aside, I think it's interesting because I didn't necessarily get that from you.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, and mind you, I don't even know if you should thank me for that, right? Like, you are who you are. Like, I think we assign words, just to try and help us understand shit. But like, you just appear to me as a strong, moderately type A personality, but in the sense where it doesn't become so overbearing that it's toxic or intrusive. So I think
say thank you for the feedback. I always appreciate feedback from mirrors, from reflections of myself, from my tribe. So it's like, thank you. I appreciate that, because it's having this feedback from people that you trust is really, really, really important for me. So because it's like I'm so stuck in my own head, and it's like I know what my nuances are. I know, internally the things that I want to fix, and like what I identify as like imbalance and stuff. So when people externally see like, no, I didn't really get that from you, I'm like, fucking hey, that's awesome. Thank you.
Word up. No, yeah, as you should. I mean, no, but you're the type of person who's working on themselves. You're the kind of person who's taking the time out. Not everybody does that, and so therefore not everybody really understands how to express that about themselves. And you're right, like, you are constantly in yourself. Arguably, if you want to talk about astral projection to a certain degree, maybe you can see yourself, but like, like,
Fresco's always gotta take it like 2 degrees further.
You know what I'm saying? But like, like, ultimately you do have a bias toward yourself, and that's kind of the problem. Even if you could see outside of yourself, there is still always this inherent degree of bias that keeps you blinded. It keeps you
absolutely. And I think the trick is to be aware, to be in constant awareness of that bias. Like,
yes.
To be biased is to be human. To be flawed is to be human. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's being forgiving, having grace with yourself, allowing yourself.
Grace with yourself, highlight.
Yes.
Yeah. Highlight that. Grace with yourself. Yes.
Having grace with yourself, understanding that you are human, you are flawed, and like, shit's gonna happen. You're gonna fuck up. You're not gonna be perfect. Like, your belief systems are gonna change, your philosophies are gonna change. But the idea is to develop yourself into a person that's capable of managing and maintaining these pivots and these changes and staying true to who you are. Like, if you could focus on anything, focus on your truths and what that means. Like, and how you can express those truths in a healthy and productive way. Like, that's the core. That's the nucleus to all of it, is your truth. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's just my thought.
For you listeners out there, if you don't already know this, Rissa drops knowledge bombs. Factoids. Life-altering knowledge quakes.
Oh man.
Does that? She doesn't.
Knowledge quakes.
Does that?
I appreciate that. I just read a lot of books. I ask a lot of questions. I have conversations with very, very profound, knowledgeable people. So it's just, I'm a canvas.
Yo, talking about ingredients that help for healthy conversation. Ask more questions than spewing shit out. Like, I don't know how to eloquently say that, but
ask questions.
Ask questions.
Yeah.
You know,
that's in Warren Buffett's How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Is it really? All right, because that, yeah, fuck yeah. Yeah. No, seriously, like, I try and only offer insight if I'm asked.
Yeah.
You know, I really try. Sometimes it comes from a good place and I just want to help, and I'm just like, mind you, I do recognize that is my own bias and my own version of like, okay, I think you should live this way. So I do recognize that. Trying to curtail it.
But you're aware of it.
But I'm aware
of it.
It is an active practice.
Yes.
An active practice. So, yeah.
I love that. No, I absolutely love that. Excuse me. So like that leads me to the next topic of growth. I know it was like a big thing we wanted to talk about because, like, okay, here's what I'm dealing with. Ending long-term friendships or recognizing the change in friendships, mourning friendships and the statuses that they used to be, whatever the fuck that means.
Highlight mourning, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like, you know what I'm saying? Allowing yourself, because that's the thing. Like, it's you have to. It sucks. Shifting, moving, life, moving forward. Sometimes it fucking sucks because you realize as you evolve and you discover your truth and you stay faithful to your truths. Selfish. You're going to have to be selfish to do this. You can't take everyone with you. And as much as I've heard that, I'm really starting to feel it because it's like my heart is sad, but my spirit is stern. Like it's it's like a breakup. It's like legit like a breakup. Like
another
it's
tattoo right there.
You'll be yadded by the time.
I know. I'm saying I'll be reset up by the end of this shit.
But and I don't know if that's like a testament to my growth or to their growth or whatever the case is. Is that growth?
Is it? You asking?
I am asking because I'm still unpacking. I'm like, I don't know. Is it me? Am I in my own feelings? Am I wrong for this? Do I have an obligation to keep feeding into these relationships because of the history that we have?
No. I think, again, this is where kind of the healthy version of being selfish comes in, and this is my own personal perspective. If you are listening and you're like, wow, that's a pretty selfish prick, well, you're entitled to feel that way, and that's fine. That's great. Believe that. You know what I mean? Do what you gotta do. But in my realm of experience, I've played that card. I've been the sort of people pleaser. I want people, like you said, being Latino, being Latinx, rather, however you want to identify that. Especially being raised by my grandma. Like, my grandma's the kind of person where her love language is giving, giving food in particular. It's like, let me feed you.
Yep. As
an aside, I find it that she uses it in a little bit of a toxic way sometimes, but she don't know it. I've been trying to teach her, but with time. But what I'm getting at is that
I feel you.
just like, I'm trying not to be here because of how you are. Like, but anyway,
it's getting a little gaslighty again.
It's like, you love the food, right? You love the food. Okay, good. So you love the food. That means I have a full license to say whatever the fuck I want. No, you don't. Well, you do, but doesn't mean I have to agree with you.
Listen, yeah.
Even grandma.
For another day,
right,
listen.
Check this out. Even grandma. Actually, this is perfect segue. Your grandmother, especially if you're in a Latin family, there are other cultures that are like this, But my grandma spent a lot of time, a lot of investment in my upbringing. So I get how she feels, like she almost has like a mom card, if you will. I
Yeah.
totally get that. But at the same time, she is of a much older generation. Not by, I mean, she probably stabbed me for saying much older and emphasizing that.
No, is she like first
Like,
generation, second generation?
yeah, so she's first she,
Like
I
first
never,
generation here, like that immigrated here?
yeah, she immigrated, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah, and on top of that, she went to school to be a nun. So she was meant to
Damn, that's
become
double
a
the
nun. Yeah,
fucking whammy.
word. And then she dipped, which was crazy. But yeah, she has an interesting story, but like the issue kind of arises that she has a very conservative viewpoint that doesn't allow for new information.
Right.
And therefore that puts our relationship in a kind of bind, because I am in a space where I've accepted what she said, but that was my foundation. And then I grew from there. And so I have this strange sort of dilemma now where I love my grandmother. I love my grandmother to
Be
bits and
around it.
pieces. I
Yeah.
understand
where
that,
she's
and I
coming
say it
from,
as
but
but it is
referencing her
exhausting
energy.
at
Right.
that very
That
consuming,
philosophy, that, like, yeah.
dogmatic.
Mm-hmm.
It must be this way kind of energy. And we've had conversations, and trust me, she's also grown as much as she's capable thus far. But I say that because, to your point, whether you should be outgrowing people, whether you should be okay with accepting that you might be moving into another space and you can't take people with you, what are you keeping yourself from, going back to that, by maintaining these relationships? Is comfort more important, more valuable than the growth that you'll gain on the other side, whatever that other side is to you?
Not speaking, that ties back into like what the homie's going through. Fuck.
Right.
Well, damn, Fresco. That's gonna be
Man.
I'm gonna make that like a tag. Like I'm gonna tell like my boyfriend, who's a producer. I'm like, can you just make a tag? Like, well, damn, Fresco. Like, shit. Exactly. No, I like that. Gives me something to chew on and to unpack, because like it doesn't mean it's any love lost. It's just kind of like,
of course
I
not.
know, right? And like the thing is, it's like, if I take my analytical mind out of it and I just go strictly off of what I feel, because that's another thing I'm trying to do with like tapping into my feminine, is like really paying attention to like feelings and like being an observer of my feelings. But
what are those?
Right. And instead of being like, no, it's fine. We're still friends. It's good. It's like da da da. But it's like, nah, I'm kind of tired of feeling like this. Like there's a reason why I'm consistently like my body locks up, or my spirit is uncomfortable, or like it's just my gut feeling. Like I think I'm gonna listen to her. And like the more that I'm listening to her, I'm getting like feelings of frustration, anger, not confusion, actually, which is interesting. It's like I'm not confused. I'm actually becoming more agitated at the fact that this might be the correct decision. Like old story fighting the new story, like comfort fighting the unknown. So it's kind of cueing me of like, maybe I am going in the right direction.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And like,
Even
that's
if it doesn't feel like it sometimes. Sometimes it doesn't feel like it, but there's a deeper, right? And I didn't mean to interrupt. It's just like there is
please,
I really want to emphasize that, like, there is this deeper part of you that is always talking to you. And I wonder, and this is me now, like, kind of capitalizing on real estate, but like, I wonder if that thing that we hear, that thing that guides us, isn't truly us, but it's the part of us that's still connected to that collective unconscious, that collective whole, whatever it is, whether it's God, whether it's the universe. I wonder if that's where those messages are coming from.
I'm gonna go ahead and say hell yes. The only reason why I say that, I love case studies. There's scientific case studies. There's this book called The Gift of Fear that really touches on listening to that inexplicable instinct, that feeling. Yes, I don't know who the author is, but it's called The Gift of Fear. And it has these handful of stories of, I don't know if it's just all women, but the couple stories that I read, is these women ended up being in compromising situations by either an attacker, kidnapped, harassed, molested, whatever the case is. And they remember saying, like, I remember getting this gut feeling that this was a bad guy or that I shouldn't be in this situation. But I told my, like, this one story was this woman, she walked into her apartment, this guy that she'd never seen before held open her door, and she was like, that's weird, I've never seen this guy before. He's like, oh, can I help you with your groceries? And she's like, no, it's okay. And like an orange ends up falling out of her bag as she's like going up the steps. And he's like, here, let me help you. And she's like, okay, well, I don't want to be rude. Like, as a woman, I don't want to be rude. I don't want to seem like I have an attitude. So she let him in. And of course, he, bad guy. It was a bad situation. And she's like, so they're in the bedroom. He ends up, trying to find the PC way of saying it, like, ends up sexually assaulting her. And he turns up the music and closes the window. And she's like, it was at that moment that I knew that he was going to kill me. And she's like, I don't know what happened. All I know is I made the decision that today is not the day that I'm going to die. And something completely took over her. Like she was no longer in her body. She's like, the moment she decided and knew that this is what was going to take place, she's like, it's almost as if I was a ghost. I like wrapped the sheets around me and I followed him like I was a shadow. And I was so quiet. And I followed him as he went through to the kitchen, and she just split to the door and ended up running to her neighbor's house. And that's when she, like, the shock took over. She started crying and like whatever. But stories like that is like, how can you not believe that there is something bigger than ourselves that is looking out for us?
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
100%. You know, and you know, one kind of devil's advocate thing that came to mind is hindsight bias. You know, there's multiple times where we feel like, I knew it, but only because it's validated later. Now, I only say that to play devil's advocate, but it's not to say that I don't agree with it. I also wonder why it is that some people don't have those moments in those situations. Why that spirit or that energy doesn't come in for everyone. I wonder if it's like different vibrational pulls for people. I wonder if some people are just more elevated in terms of their energy level. I don't know, but it is a question that you know, like a wrench to kind of throw into the situation. That like, why isn't that we all don't do that? You know, why do some of us have to experience those terrible, terrible traumatic experiences?
Theory. We're taught to repress those. We're taught to repress that. Like, it's like, I like anything having to do with like fear, discomfort. I have a weird, funny feeling. Oh, you're just overthinking it. Oh, you're just like, it's just, don't be silly. Like, that would never happen. You know what I'm saying? So we start to train ourselves to disregard those types of things. You know, like I'll never forget the moment where I began trusting my instinct and my gut feeling more. Me and my friend, what's up, Kiana? She got two kids, two beautiful kids now. But this was back in the day. We were going to a club for our friend's birthday. It was like in downtown LA, somewhere off of like Temple, like where all like the warehouses was. It was super sus. We're like, okay, like whatever. I was adventurous back in the day. I was like, yeah, whatever. So like we parked. And like as soon as we parked, me and my friend saw this line of like, it had to have been like 15 to 20 something dudes lined up against one of these brick walls in the parking lot, just standing there, leaning against the wall. And I was like, that's fucking weird. That's really weird. They're not talking. They're not interacting. They're all just lined up in a line. And so me and my friend were like, yeah, that is weird. So our other homegirl whose birthday it was, she pulls up and we're like, are you sure you want to like come to like party here? We can go somewhere else. Like there's plenty of places. So she's like, nope, this is where I want to go. This is what I want to do. So we both disregarded our gut feeling just so we can be like, okay, it's her birthday. Like we're going to have fun. We weren't in there, I don't even think, an hour before someone came running in and was like, they're breaking in all the cars and blah, 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 blah. And like, I had a hoopty back then. I still have a hoopty, but like I had a older hoopty back then. And I was like, oh, they're not gonna break into my car. Like, whatever, I don't have shit in there. And the security guard was like, don't be too sure. And I was like, God damn it, this is a setup. So like, so I have my heels on. My friend Kiana runs to my car and she's like, yeah, it's broken into. Luckily, I didn't have anything valuable in there that they took. But that was like, I will never, ever not listen to my gut feeling ever again. And there was like a couple times after that where I didn't listen to my gut feeling and something bad happened. And I was like, never again. It's not a coincidence. It was too consistent for
No. You so you're talking about gut feelings, and because you love research studies, I don't have the exact study, but if you look it up, I think you'd really enjoy this kind of info pit, if you will.
Yep.
I recall reading that we actually have brain matter in our stomach. So when we get that feeling of, holy shit, I don't know if I should do this, that gut feeling, like we always have called it a gut feeling, it is a synapse that's connected to your brain that's saying it's actually processing the information that you're observing, coming in through your eyes, coming in through your senses, and it just so happens to fire in your stomach region, not your head region.
What?
Yeah.
You already know I'm gonna have to Google that.
Yeah, check it out. There's one other spot too. I can't remember if it's like your lungs or your heart. I think it might be your heart, that there's brain matter in your heart as well. That one I'm not as certain about. Double check that. But yes.
Makes sense though. Fascinating. I love it. Oh my God. I really think we've only scraped the surface of what our brain and bodies are capable of doing.
Yeah, but what the fuck is an appendix? Like, I'm still trying to figure that shit out.
Dude, all I know is that you die if it bursts.
But you don't need it if you like have it removed. Like, what the fuck is that?
And tonsils. You don't need your tonsils if you need them removed, right?
I had my tonsils and my adenoids removed. I don't know what adenoids are. I was
like, what the fuck is an adenoid?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess they're homies. They just like chill together and like fuck shit up in my throat together, apparently. But like, you know, I wonder what my voice would sound like if I still had those. Also, Darwinism, right? Like, I think about that sometimes. Like, I had my tonsils and my adenoids removed. I do believe in Darwinism. Would I still be here if it were not for the modern miracles of medical science today? I don't know.
Probably. I mean, yeah, that's a good question. I was like, I can unpack that too, but I feel like
I chew on it.
Yeah, I mean, you got to look at like the advancements of modern medicine compared to the lifespan of like man nowadays. Like, you know, simple discoveries like washing your fucking hands has helped with the mortality rate of women giving birth and newborn babies. So I feel like with each medical discovery, it's only a benefit. With each beneficial medical discovery, it's a benefit to the longevity of man's life. Like, had it not been for surgery, had it not been for discovering the procedure of like, oh, we could probably remove your tonsils and you'll still be alive.
That'd be fine.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
some about those tonsils really like infection. Let's just.
My sister had to have them removed. I remember that girl always had tonsillitis. Always. She was always getting sick. Like, she was just a sick baby. And like, my parents are old school and they didn't really like taking us to the doctor like that. And so they're like, she's fine. And I just remember sitting in her room. Poor thing. She looked like she was in so much pain. I think I was like 12 and I was like, Mom, Dad, I think Mariah needs to go to the doctor. I was like, me as a kid having a heart-to-heart with my parents of like, so my sister and I had a huddle. We need to get this taken care of. But yeah, and after that she was Gucci. She was like up and at it after that.
I don't know, it's funky like that. But I don't know, neither here nor there, just a thought. No,
that's like, these questions are important. These questions, like, these are things to think about. It's fun. This is what philosophers thought about. This is what gets your gears going. Like
we should genuinely pay, like, it should be a career to just sit and think like that. Like, actually, in a sense, marketing teams do that, but they do that literally to simply make money. I mean, like, really to just contemplate the important things in life. I feel like that should be a career path.
I agree.
Mm.
Like, was it Tesla who, like, I forget who it was. I don't know if it was Tesla or someone else who used to keep keys in their hand because they would like give themselves dedicated time to just sit there and think. And then when they would start to doze off, they'd drop their keys and like would wake them up. So they like can continue thinking. I'll put it in the description. I'll have to Google who the fuck it was. But when I was reading about philosophers, and I was reading a book like that where all of the greats like Beethoven and Plato and like all of them talk about having times where they just thought. Like they just sat there and they just thought about things, asked themselves questions. Because and that's what made them philosophers. Like what you asked, I feel are philosophical questions. I'm like, it may not seem relevant, I guess. To me, it seems relevant because I'm like, that's actually a really good question. And we can like really expand the thought on this and like everything's connected. And like, I love having conversations like that. Mm-hmm. So I think it's worth, I think it should be a paid gig. Not even a paid gig. Like there should be no payment incentive behind it other than like
like a residency.
I think like you know what I'm saying? Like it's like critical thinking and philosophy is like I think should be like a prerequisite for a lot of things.
It really should be. Honestly, like having philosophy courses while I was going for my psychology degree. Everything that meant everything to me, and it was crazy. Like I don't know if I remember if I said this during the last podcast or not, but like the philosophy course that I took, I wish I remember what it was called. You see that? I just removed so much shit to make space for new stuff. It just, but I did so poorly in that class, like, and it was not for lack of trying, and I still love that class. Like, I'm pretty sure it's the one class in my entire collegiate career that I got a D, and I was like, I would take this class again. Like, I know technically I passed, but I would 100 just... Oh, it was Knowledge, Truth, and Belief. That's what it was called. We discussed the difference between the three of those, the difference between knowledge, truth, and belief.
Wow.
Fantastic.
Wow. Yeah. I love that. It's truth and believe. What you know, what's actually true, and then what you believe after. Hey, I like that.
Yeah. No, sweet thought. Yeah, and he used it as a platform to kind of embrace different theories of philosophy. You know, your cynicism, your skeptics, your empiricists, your rationalists. It was a brilliant way to kind of just break it down, but it was also a lot of information. Like,
sure.
Having the rigid mind that I had at that time, you know, just coming out of the religion or kind of accepting that I was putting that part of myself behind me, and then being faced with challenging thought ideas, like thought crunchers, if you will. It was just like, it almost drove me over the edge.
I know I would leave each class like mouth open, drooling, like so much to fucking unpack. Am I a sham? I feel like a clown. What is life? Like I love learning new things that make me question my beliefs in a healthy way.
Yeah, look up if you haven't heard of this, look up the Allegory of the Cave.
That sounds familiar. Is that about Greek philosophers?
Yeah. Like in a nutshell, it has something to do with like, because I don't want to spoil it, but it has something to do with this idea that like you're in a cave, you hear sounds, you see don't ever see where it's coming from. So it really kind of tackles like what is reality, what is perception, you know, that sort of a thing.
That's kind of like if a tree falls and no one is around, does it make a sound?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Does it? Mm.
Or what's that scientific or that experiment where with the cat in the box?
Woods. Oh, yeah, that cat. Schrodinger's cat.
Yeah, it's like, is the cat alive or dead? And like something about different realities or something like that. Like
that one, I admit, I still have trouble with that one. I know what it is. I have but it's like
It's a
like
thinker. You got to come back to it.
it actually makes me want to scream. Like, well, did you put it in there? Like, like.
Is the cat even in there? It's like, is it alive? Is it dead? Or is it even in there? I don't even fucking know, man.
I think true philosophy and true patience is hearing Schrodinger's cat and not getting angry about it. I think that's like that is a truly enlightened being. Like, is it even there? Like, I want to smack you for asking that question.
It's just like, what do you mean? You know, I'm gonna just let that one lie.
I do. I still think I'm missing something about it, but like I'm just like, oh, did you put it in? Did you see somebody put it in? But then again, I in a sense I do kind of get it, because like if your sight is just the information that your eyeball, right? Your eyeball is a tool, right? And your eyeball ingests information, or it accepts information, and then it's up to your brain to process that information, which was this great video that I was watching about, are we living in a virtual reality realm? Mm-hmm. And basically, like, yeah, in a sense, because
is it the Matrix? Are you Neo?
Well, think about it, right? Your brain is in here, and
right.
Here's where perception, like your the processing of perception happens. So your brain never actually...
Oh, for those listening, he's pointing at the top of his head.
Oh,
or you should just watch the YouTube video so you can see.
I like that plug. Visual stimulation. But yeah, so your brain is in your skull, right? It never interacts directly with the outside world. So it relies on your eyes to send it information, your ears, your fingers, your body, touch, all the senses, and then it creates its best version, its best idea of what it perceives, what it would imagine reality would be. Like, how fucking weird is that?
So I'm making a face right now, listeners, because it's like, it's a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot. It's just like, that's a very, very, very expansive thought. And that's one of those, it's like, I can smoke a blunt or microdose some shrooms and just like get lost in thought of like, like, is life really what I perceive it to be? And that's a real, like, that is a real outside of yourself, outside of your ego question, to truly believe that there is something much, much, much larger than our human form that we are cosmically connected to is a scary thought and a very beautiful and amazing thought at the same time.
Yeah.
And it's up to the person to accept that and entertain it without fully subscribing to it. It's just like something to play with. It's like chewing gum. Just kind of like, just juggle the thought for a little bit. See how you feel. See where it touches, like how it resonates with you. But yeah, dude, like me personally, I think there are glitches in the Matrix all the time. I do think that I believe in alternate universes. I believe in the paranormal. I'm not egotistical enough to believe that this is all that there is.
Oh, 100% no. If we're basing it off of 5 primitive senses,
and we've proven that there's elements to this world that we can't see, but animals can. Like seeing that ultraviolet color.
Oh, yeah, with the birds. Yeah. Yep. The birds, ultrasonic sound, what the clicking that dolphins do, whatever that is. What is it? Because bats are blind, so they... it's ultrasonic, isn't it? It's ultrasonic sound with the bats.
Something like that. It's the same thing with like a dog whistle. Like they can hear the whistle and we can't hear it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like there's all of that. Sees that, like, again, if you think of us as a computer, like this microphone that's here, you guys might, I don't know, like pops in and out. But like this microphone might be missing out on some frequencies of sound. Or we might not be able to hear the frequencies that this microphone is capable of picking up. Right? So like how about talking about paranormal activity, when you hear those people who record sounds and you hear voices from other sides, like where are those voices coming from and why can't we hear them without recording them? I'm trying to remember what that's called specifically. Have you heard of that?
Yeah, it's on like those ghost catcher shows. Like it's you can do it yourselves. You can literally get your phone, put it on record, leave it in a room, walk away and see what you pick up, or sit there and see what you pick up that you may not have heard with just your naked ear.
Word.
Yeah.
I secretly wanted to record myself sleeping, but I'm afraid of what I would see.
Someone recorded herself sleeping. Was it on TikTok? No, it was like I have to fucking find it. So she was like, first of all, I wish that I didn't. And she was like, so there's a lot of farting. But then there was like, she was like, but then there was like these voices that were just like, what? Yeah, so I feel it. And it's kind of the same thing like when I'm editing sometimes and like I'm leaving the room and like I'm watching like the video and I'm editing through it. I'm like, please don't let a ghost pop up. Please don't let a ghost pop up. Please don't let a ghost pop up. But I do see those like white orbs a lot, like in my videos sometimes. Like I'll see like those like little white orbs that people claim are spirits.
But isn't that light just hitting lint? I've always thought that that's what that was.
Some look like lint, some are just literal balls of light.
Really?
That's not lint. I'll have to find an example of a photo where I'm like, if that's lint, I want to see what type of lint you get in your house.
Right.
But hey,
which got floating dust bunnies.
I need to see your reference because holy shit, my friend. But yeah, like it's. I definitely like my grandma had. I don't know if it was clairvoyancy, but she definitely was able to recognize those spirits. My dad has a little bit of that. My boyfriend has that. Them motherfuckers love him. Like he's always attracting them. Oh, my sister just texted me. She's like, "You're getting old." Like,
yo, wow.
I was like, "Can you just watch my TikTok? Like, should I stop?"
Bro.
She's like, "Your birthday's coming up," and she just keeps texting like, "Old." I was like, honestly, man, you are not making me feel good about this. Yeah, my birthday's in a couple of weeks. I'm gonna be 33.
Good for you. I love the number 3. So 2 3s is what's up.
Yeah, my life path number is 3 too. So that's kind of fun. But so before we go, I feel kind of bad because we didn't get to talk about what you wanted to talk about, which is another kind of outside of yourself concept, and it's the theme of the show. You've been having conversations or thoughts about past lives or like living past lives.
Oh, yeah. So, all right. I'm reading this book, and there's a story attached to the book, which I'll save for another time. But it's a book called Past Lives, Many Masters.
Ooh, I love that.
It was written by a psychiatrist in 1988. And he's very much like you. He's the type, he wants receipts. He wants to make sure, like, you can say something as much as you want, doesn't make it true type shit. And so,
my guy.
Word. And he even talks about it. He even says, like, I didn't want to believe in past lives because I was never taught that there was evidence to suggest it was true.
Sure.
And he took it upon himself to look for the research and found it. Now, this is back in 1988. And mind you, he had to take the time to write the book, so perhaps even earlier. 1985, right. What have you. I don't know, so before 1988.
Sure.
In this book, he, through a very interesting set of circumstances, is connected with a client who's dealing with trauma. And she has these phobias. And I don't remember what the phobias are because honestly they're not particularly relevant. Other than nothing happened in her life to justify the phobias. I believe one of them was a fear of drowning. So she never had a bad experience in water. Like she never came close to drowning. She was never put in water. She was never held underwater. So usually with a phobia, there's a reason for it. There's a trauma attached to it. This woman had no reason for it. And the thing that was interesting is multiple people referred her to this psychiatrist, and she ultimately wound up going because of the multiple referrals, not because she felt like she needed to go. So she goes, And he starts, doing his psychiatric treatment. And mind you, he's also very big into using medicines, like pharmaceutical medicine.
Okay.
This experience changed his belief on that. So she starts, so he hypnotizes her, and she starts telling him very vivid details about past lives.
Oh, shit.
And these are vivid details where she's recognizing people in her current life in these past lives.
Oh, wow.
The part where this starts getting kind of not tricky, but like I just got goosebumps thinking about it, is when she starts talking about death. And what winds up happening is, upon dying, and mind you, in the research, there's accounts over and over about this specific way, that you float up. And everybody who's had an NDE, a near-death experience.
Yeah, near-death experience.
Everybody who's had that, they express that they felt this sort of floating away from their body.
Mm.
And mind you, we need people with near-death experiences to kind of express this sentiment, because,
Sure.
The opposite of that is you just die. So, like, we can't really talk to you, or can we? We just touched on that. So he's going through this treatment with her, and at the end, when she's discussing her death, she's floating, and she talks about this place where we all go to, and it's almost like a waiting room. And it's not like in a physical sense, but it's like we all go to this place, and our spirit essentially waits, and we're waiting to pass on to another experience. At this point, her voice changes and becomes gruff and husky, and the information and the way in which she's expressing the information does not sound remotely like anything or any behavior that she had expressed before that. Now, this is different than multiple personalities, because the being that was speaking through her made it a point to express that it wasn't that she was still there, but that it was just using her as a mechanism to speak to him. And so the treatment wound up not being about her, but more about him.
Wow.
And so the messages that came through were essentially this. There are higher beings called masters, which are essentially ascendant beings, and every life that we come into, we're meant to learn a lesson. And during the process of learning that lesson, we're also meant to teach others about our past lessons. If we don't do that, we're not doomed, but we continue to have to, very much like karma. We have to continue to experience it until we learn that lesson. I believe this because the way that I got this book, again, I'm not going to go into that specific detail too much, but I was in a shamanic drum circle, and I met a Viking that I had saved in a previous life, and he was one of my guides, one of my spirit guides, because I saved him. He was protecting me, and he specifically told me that. He was like, in a past life, you saved me, and so I'm indebted to you. And this was no drugs, this was no hallucinogenics, this was just a very deep meditation.
Yeah. I remember you telling me about this drum circle. You're like,
yes.
Yeah.
So I have my own personal experience to kind of validate what this book is saying. But ultimately, he had this unique experience to speak to those higher beings, and those higher beings told him that we're here to learn. This isn't the last stop. And in fact, we choose to come here because we know that our being needs to learn a certain lesson. So when people talk about the purpose in their life, they're talking about the purpose in this life, because that purpose continues to change.
I'm definitely going to read the shit out of that book. That is a lot like what I learned through Buddhism and reincarnation and living your soul, living as a human in multiple lives, because in each life, that's exactly what they teach. Like, literally to the T, you are learning a lesson in each life until you reach that pinnacle of enlightenment of Buddha.
where you know where your spirit or your soul no longer has the need to reincarnate because you've reached enlightenment, and that's when I guess you become the master or whatever you were talking about.
Right.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Yeah. So let's take that like a little exercise. I expressed this in a book with a different terminology than Buddhism. If you applied the kind of general sort of idea of it and looked at other faiths, other beliefs, other systems, you'll see a very core similarity between all of them. You know, Christians going to hell, they go to hell to have to relive the experience of, to essentially pay for the pain or whatever bullshit they caused while they were living. In effect, Christianity's version of hell is the master's version or the Buddhic version of coming into this realm of existence and learning our lessons, because it's cyclical. You keep coming back to learn that lesson until you learn it. The only difference is with hell you never get out.
Right. It's so final. It's so like that's it. It's like, and even as a young kid, I was like, what do you mean that's it? Like, I thought he was supposed to be like this all big at like this big situation. Like, what? It's just so limiting. But yeah, like it's there's just so much evidence that is like tangible evidence that points to that theory being true. You see it in the news. I have to pull up the story of this kid who people believe he was like a reincarnated pilot, like a aviation pilot. He was able to like identify names and people and like even people that were in his past life. Like he was
classified documents too, wasn't he? Right? Yeah.
Something like that. Like it was just like this is a kid, this is a child, and she's like, and the mom's like, yeah, he was obsessed with planes since like he discovered what a plane was. Like, you know what I'm saying? So it's you have to look at these situations, and a lot of people write it off as like, oh, that's not fake, that's not real, like whatever. I'm like, I understand the news can be very like they stretch things, but like I don't know, like I feel like this wouldn't make the news if there wasn't some degree, I don't know, that's just my thought. Like it's very interesting. There's a lot of like tangible evidence that proves to us that there's just some cosmic thing much larger than ourselves that is constantly going on. And we do ourselves a disservice by not exploring that.
We do. And it comes back to whether or not you should get rid of your friends, like get rid of bad friends. There's a part of the book that talks about it, and I haven't even finished it. I'm only on like chapter 7. But there's a part of it that states, one of the masters says that if you try and teach somebody who doesn't want to be taught, you need to move on.
Yes.
You can't stay there and continue to try to impose the lesson upon that person, because something more impactful is coming after you to teach them that lesson. And if it doesn't come in that lifetime, it'll come in the next one. So your relationships that are toxic, your relationships that are unhealthy, unvaluable, unsavory, those relationships that are not serving you, you need to let those go, because it's keeping you from your ultimate goal of learning your personal lesson.
1000%.
It really, according to the book anyway. So I wanted to take that. I wanted to bring that back to the friendship conversation, because like there are reasons why some people you do just have to let go of. And in addition to that, you don't want to, it talks about killing people or harming people. Vendettas are dangerous, not necessarily because of the karmic impact of them, but because you're ending that person's suffering and their ability to learn the lesson from their actions by killing them. So if you truly want somebody to suffer, let them live.
I've heard that before. I've heard that before. Oh, man.
I read that.
I say all the time, I'm like, I let dogs lie where they lie, whatever that phrase is. I'm like, karma is far more creative than I ever could think to be.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm gonna just let her do her thing, because she karma always finds a way to sit us on our ass and get us to listen. So if it's not gonna be through me, and I'm like, that's okay, mama, karma go get you. I ain't gonna worry about it. God, peace and love. If you need to talk about it, you know where to find me. So yeah, with that being said, I think that is a great way to sign off on this episode. Like, so we unpacked a lot of stuff again today, my friend.
we did. And I appreciate you for having the bandwidth to have these conversations, to to dive into them and channel the energy. Like, it's like, what is it? It's like midnight over here. Yeah, it's like 1 a.m. We have this bandwidth to just handle this information, process it, share it. You might see us stutter a little bit, just for the viewers, listeners. You might see us stutter, but that's because we're trying to put words to something that's like very seldom said,
Yeah.
And so, once again, thank you for this platform. Thanks for inviting me. I appreciate it.
Oh my God, always. Like, you always have a home here. Like, I'm like, yo, if you want to co-host as many episodes as you fucking want, you are more than welcome. But I appreciate you as well for having the like-mindedness and the bandwidth that mirrors mine, where we can ping pong and bounce these theories off of each other and exactly, have a little volley going on. But there's not a lot of people that I'm able to be this free in conversation with. So I always appreciate those that just humor me. Like,
just humor you, yeah.
Jump into the conversations. And I didn't realize it was 1 a.m. over there, my friend. You are a fucking trooper. I really appreciate it. I know you're saying you're a night owl, but I'm like, I don't know if you're tired or like what you gonna do after this, but I fully appreciate it. Won't you let the good people know where they can find you?
Oh, thank you. Yes, you can find me on Instagram, photography. Check that. Find me on Instagram at Wake Up Fresco. Because you need that reminder every day you're waking up and every night you go to sleep. It's always a new start. Websites, I've got 2 of them. It is photographybyfresco.com and frescoartsteam.com, both dedicated to photography and photos that channel a sort of sense of soul and spirit. There's a certain vibrance that I hope to capture, and I hope you guys will see it. And let me know. I'm out here in Jersey, but I'm not afraid to travel, so I'm happy to come to you. Please let me know. I am excited to get to know you, get to love you, get to be around you. And I am Alessandro Fresco Certis. Thank you so much, Rissa.
Well, I mean, shit. Let me not fuck up that outro. My name is Rissa, a.k.a. Rissa SoFar. You can find me on all social media platforms at Rissa SoFar or Culture Fuzz. If you like this show, if you enjoy this show, I invite you to please head over to my website, www.culturefuzz.com, and buy me a coffee. Leave me a tip in the tip jar.
Ooh.
You listen to this show for free. You get to enjoy this show for free. I like to drink coffee, and all I ask is just buy me a cup of coffee. Let me know that you out here, that you exist, and yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like, let's make it happen. So on that note, I will catch you all next week. Bye.
Next week.